There is a resolution on the agenda for the board to consider regarding the formation or the application for the Vinci Charter School. So that is a new charter school that is proposed. I have provided all of you with a fact sheet. Okay? That is something that you are certainly able to read about. There's key information about the charter school, the formation of the charter school. I will try to keep this as brief as possible. There are a few considerations that I felt very important, and I felt that it was very important for me to communicate directly to the commissioner regarding this charter school. Now, keeping in mind, I am not opposed to charter schools. We have 3 charter schools. They seem to get along just fine. But I am concerned about this 4th charter school. And I am concerned, so I did write a letter in opposition to this new charter school for specific reasons, and it has to do with our students and my concerns regarding the impact of the charter school on the students that are attending the schools that we have right now, public schools. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over a few key points. Okay, one of them has to do with the requirement that the commissioner carries out an evaluation of the segregative effects of the proposed schools. Okay, so this is a requirement. This exists in law. The citation is right there for you. And if you take a look at the first page, well, actually the second page, what happens here, this little handout, you can see the breakout of the students attending the charter schools, and you can see that in contrast to the public schools. Okay? And what you can do across the top, okay, so obviously the school name, this comes directly from the Department of Ed. So this is information directly from the Department of Ed, including the headings. Okay? So on the right-hand side, you can see free and reduced lunch, and the percentage of students in charter schools that receive free and reduced lunch, and this percentage of students that receive free and reduced lunch in the public schools. That's summarized. And so you can see that very plainly that there are significant differences because, like I said, there's summary information. And you can also see that there are significant differences in the populations of the existing charter schools based on ethnicity. And so you can go across the top, the headings, and then you can look at the different headings, the numbers of students in each of the schools. Again, this is the most recent information available through the Department of Ed. Okay, so that is something that the commissioner must consider. That is something I have provided to him. I'm not sure what type of analysis they do, but that's something that is important to consider. The other thing I did was I included an attachment regarding Hoboken Charter School because their enrollment is very different. Their enrollment needs to be considered in different grade levels. So you can see from kindergarten through 5th grade, the middle grades, and then high school, their enrollment is very different depending on the grade level. Okay? So that is very clear and easy to see. So why do I bring this up? Why do I mention this commissioner? 1, because this is something that he has to look at. 2, because there is already an existing segregative effects. And 3, because the applicants for the Vinci Charter School have noted in their application they look to pattern their enrollment after Ola Charter School. And so the enrollment information regarding Ola Charter School is listed right there. So that is one thing that I think is a very important factor. It's something the commissioner has to look at. The other factor, and this is an interesting thing that came up in this whole evaluation process of the application. I will get to the financial impact information a little bit later, but there are things that the Department of Ed already put in place to make sure there is a certain balance that exists between charter schools and non-charter public schools. And you can see there's a citation in the middle of the page, 18A36A-4. There are limitations for the enrollment of students in charter schools. So you can see there's language about there's 500 students, 25% of the student body, whichever is less. Okay? That is something that is done by the Department of Ed. It's something that's put in place to, like I said, maintain fair balance in the different school districts when there are charter schools that are proposed. Okay, how many students can attend the charter schools? Now, interestingly, this created another dilemma because at this point, the charter school enrollment is beyond the limitations. So there are some discussions that need to happen at the board level regarding where we stand with this, exactly what this means for us, what are our obligations, because there are considerations, for example, the continued expansion of the Ola Charter School. The Board of Ed may not be responsible to fund any additional enrollment. The Board of Ed may not be responsible to fund any enrollment for the Vinci Charter School. And so that creates some significant questions regarding the funding requirements that the Board of Ed has in continuing the process that's already in place, as well as what's to be done down the road if the charter is approved. And like I said, this is an important bridge that needs to be crossed, and the determination needs to be made, because this is something that would obviously have a major impact on the future of our schools, the future of charter schools, and we need to make some determination about that. I did speak to our attorney about that matter. He has provided the information that this clause, this part of the law, does indeed apply here, and that the 500 student limit is in effect and does matter. So this is something that needs to be discussed extensively, because there's a significant amount of funding at stake. The other thing that I wanted to point out is there's a few basic things, I guess, regarding charter schools. One, a lot of people, there's I guess, some myth busting that needs to be done. The charter schools are separate school districts. Many people believe that they are under the supervision of the board, and the Board of Ed approves a charter school. The Board of Ed does not approve a charter school. The Commissioner of Education and the State Board of Ed are responsible for approving charter schools. The Board of Ed has the ability to weigh in, to express their opinion on the formation of the charter school, but they have no authority over the charter school. So essentially what we're doing is we're forming another school district. That's the idea. The charter school is its own separate school district. It is treated as a separate school district. It is not a part of the Board of Ed. So I think that's an important thing to be mentioned. Now the other thing that I'd like to talk to you about is on the last page, the fiscal impact of the new charter school. So this is a one-page summary, okay, that requires a little bit of explanation. Okay? So it's complicated in some ways. I'll explain a little bit of that. If you want to talk more about it, maybe we can talk about it, when we break the meeting or something like that. We used a 5-year cohort survival analysis, meaning that we looked really at the lower grade levels. We limited our analysis only to the impact of the new charter school. So this does not take into consideration any further expansion of any other charter school, any additional enrollment at the charter schools. It takes into consideration only the impact of the Vinci school. Okay? And as you go along, you can see the Board of Ed enrollment, like that's kind of in the middle. You can see the grade levels. You can see the different class sizes, the number of sections that we run, okay, for each of the schools. And as you go along, you can see the numbers and how they change. The charter first year is fiscal year 14, right? HBOE fiscal year 14. That is where the impact of the new charter is. Based on their application, we have projected, well, they said that in kindergarten, first and second grade, they'll start with 44 students at each grade level. And then that expands, and you can see how that expands up until 5th grade. So we ran the analysis up to 2017. Okay. Down below, you'll see some other information about 2/3 of the way down where it says budget savings to the Hoboken Board of Ed classroom. Okay? What we've calculated based on the average cost of employing a teacher, based on, actually step one, the cost of supplies, all of our instructional items for the lower grades that are contained in the budget, all were used to develop a number so that you can see that running a section of classes, so in other words, one class of kindergarten, costs the district somewhere between $80,000 and $90,000 over this time period. Okay? That's about the cost of hiring a teacher. That's at step one, class full of kids, all the supplies they need. That doesn't include, it may not include everything, but it's a pretty close estimate. Okay? And what we have here, if you see below, is we have potential classrooms not needed due to the charter application. So we have, in the first year, we have 6 classrooms that we have as an ideal situation. The Board of Ed would not need. There would be $485,000 in savings in that year. And as you go along, you see down below what we did is we estimated based on our current charter school, we essentially receive a bill, right? The charter schools do not get to negotiate how much money the Board of Ed gives them. The state provides us with a statement that says on certain dates, you will make payments to the charter schools. That's how it works. And so we use that information that we have now, we projected forward, we used a 2% factor, so you can see, for example, in the fiscal year 13, 11,283. We expect that the Board of Ed, right, because they receive state aid and some other things, but our direct costs would be in that year 11,283. And then the following year, right, 11,509. That's for one student. That is what the Board of Ed contributes to the operation of the charter school. You can see the impact would be over $1 million in the first year alone. Okay? And the 485,310 is a very optimistic number as far as savings to the district, because the reality is if you reduce a handful of students at each grade level and they're spread out over the schools, you have another interesting situation that develops where you have these kind of, these strange class sizes where you have to make decisions. So instead of having maybe a class size of 20, right? Now you have a class size of 17, okay? So, but you have to reduce your funding by $1 million. So, I guess as you look along here, you can see the additional contributions that the Board of Ed would have to make. You can see the cumulative financial impact to the far right over the first few years will be $2.44 million. That is the amount, the cumulative effect of the charter school on the school budget over the first few years, not considering the effect of the other 3 charter schools, and not considering the projected increase of enrollment in OLA, and being very conservative with regard to the amounts of money, the funding that we would be able to save. Okay? We would actually probably wind up having to contribute more for the first year. Now, what I don't want to do, we have many parents here, so I know the question is coming, and I don't want to rile people up, get everybody upset. What I want to do is talk about realistically if the board were facing $1 million, $1.5 million, somewhere in that range of cuts. Okay? Just to give you a sense, $1.1 million is what is required simply to fund all of our athletic programs, our cultural arts, and our after-school activities. That's $1.1 million. However, that would be unrealistic to say that those types of programs would be eliminated completely. What's realistic to say, and what happens in a situation like this is, okay, well, there's some trimming that's done. There's other programs that are cut. There are other things that happen to obtain efficiencies. We no longer have a whole lot in the budget where we can afford to give up. We have a pretty lean budget at this point. Familiar with the budget, we do not have a whole lot of money that we can afford to simply give up. Now, the other thing, class sizes. So the district right now has, depending on the grade level, 17, 18 students per grade level. And a lot of times we usually like to run, so like for example here, you run 3 classes of 18 students. That would be 54 total students. There's no way to get to $1 million in reductions by cutting a club here, a club there. That's a lot of money. So the idea would be that throughout the district, there would be some belt tightening, there would be some increases in class size. There's no way around it. So you would have to go from, say you had 3 sections of 18, right, that would give you 54 students. Now you have to go down to 2 sections of 27. 27 students is not, so I'm just giving you some sense of how it would play out here based on the class sizes we have now. And what does that mean for parents? What does that mean for students? What impact does that really have? So yes, there would be trimming. Yes, there would be programs. Yes, there would be things that we would not be able to do. Yes, there would be other types of efficiency we would seek, but there's also some other things that have already been done. For example, we have transitioned to the state health benefit plan. That's a card that has already been played. There's significant savings involved in that. There's a major impact on the district budget for next year, and that continues, but it doesn't help down the road. It doesn't help down the road. It's a reduction that helps us in the upcoming year. And there are probably, I'm sorry. That is, sorry. I'm sure you've heard enough anyway.